What's up, fellas? In this video I'm going to tell you how I had my second six-figure day of 2024, all from betting on MMA. So this came on the event UFC 298. The last six-figure day I had, I won $130,000, and that was on UFC 297, the last pay-per-view. So now there's two pay-per-views in a row that I've won over six figures. UFC 297 was slightly bigger, like I had slightly more profit, but UFC 298 was an absolute banger as well. I earned a lot of money, and I even cashed a massive parlay on the main event for over $15,000. I'm not gonna run you through every single bet that I had on the card. I'm just gonna speak to you about my favorite bets, and I'm gonna drop some value, I'm gonna drop some jewels, I'm gonna tell you why I made these bets and how you can replicate it for success in your own gambling. So the first fight I wanna talk about is Mingyang Zhang versus Brenson Ribeiro. Now, both of these fighters were coming off the Contender Series, and both of them got early first round knockouts, and they was both making their debuts in the UFC on a big card, UFC 298. Now, the money lines were very close, right? So we had Mingyang Zhang, who was a -130 favorite, and we had Brenson Ribeiro, who was a +110 underdog or something like that, right? So I couldn't find any value on the money lines because who the f knows who's gonna win? I mean, both of these guys were not that experienced for MMA, at least not on the UFC level. Both of these guys had been knocked out early in the past, so we wasn't 100% sure on how their chins would hold up. And both of them have a lot of power and could knock each other out early. So in these type of fights, right, where it's very volatile, we don't know much about either fighter. Both fighters are making their UFC debut, which a pro tip I'm gonna give you now, when a fighter is making their UFC debut, oftentimes they underperform, right? So it just adds more volatility into the fire. So basically, we didn't know much about these guys, but what we did know is that combined, something crazy like 90% of their fights ended in the first round. And if you just watch tape, which is what I do before every fight, you would see that both of these guys either get a knockout in round one or get knocked out in round one. That's basically what happens in most of their fights. Yes, there's some outliers, but for the most part, the round one is an absolute chaotic round for both fighters. So it's safe to assume that in this fight, it's probably gonna be a chaotic round as well. So because of this information, instead of playing any fighter to win, which I know a lot of people did, I just thought to myself, let me play somebody to win in round one. I looked at the odds and I saw that Mingyang Zhang was +260 odds to win by KO in round one, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous. If he was the favorite, right, the bookies are saying that he's gonna win more often than not. And he had won his last 3 fights by knockout in round one. And the 2 fights before that, he had lost by knockout in round one. So the last 5 fights of Mingyang Zhang ended via knockout in round one, and now this guy's a favorite, and you're putting his knockout in round one price at +260? Bookies were basically telling me that this guy's got less than a 30% chance to get a knockout in round one. I completely disagreed. I honestly thought it should be +150. I thought that the line for Mingyang Zhang to get a knockout in round one should be about +150. So when I saw +260, I snapped it up straight away. I put a lot of money on that, multiple thousands of dollars. I even put that specific selection in parlays, which boosted the parlays up massively with another plus EV leg. But I didn't only bet on this because of the statistics between both fighters and they get knocked out early or they knock out their opponents early. I also bet on it because of the stylistics, because as I always say, there's only 3 ways to cap an MMA betting fight, right? An MMA fight. It's statistically, stylistically, and intangibly. And stylistically, I thought this was a good matchup for Zhang to get an early KO because Ribeiro is there to be KO'd. He stands in front of you. Yes, he's kind of technical, but he's there to be KO'd. And the main thing for me in this fight is that Ribeiro's chin, I didn't think was great, but I did think Zhang's chin was quite good. So put all of this into the pot. They both get knockouts in round one. They both been knocked out in round one, but one guy has a better chin than the other guy. I'm gonna go with that guy. And you're giving me +260 on the favorite? Easy bet for me, guys. I put a lot of money on it and I won a lot of money. Zhang got a KO within 90 seconds. So it was a very easy cash for me, sweat-free cash. Next fight I want to speak about is Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. Now, I bet Fluffy Hernandez in this spot. I bet on him to win in round 2 and to win in round 3, and I bet the fight doesn't go to decision. So I was very heavy on this fight. And there's 2 main reasons for it, right? And this is something that you can replicate in your own MMA betting as well. So this fight was a fight between a grappler and a striker. And oftentimes, guys, when we get binary matchups, and by binary, I mean the fighters do completely different things, oftentimes we see the fights end inside the distance. If you get a striker who's really good at striking, and you get a grappler who's really good at grappling. Well, that means that the striker can obviously knock out the grappler because he ain't that good at striking. And it also means that the grappler can submit or get a ground and pound TKO over the striker because the striker ain't a grappler. He's a striker, right? So he isn't going to do that well on the ground. And that's exactly what we had here. We had a striker versus grappler. I favored the grappler. And the reason for that is because I've seen more deficiencies from the striker, Roman Kopylov, on the ground than I saw deficiencies from Fluffy Hernandez, the grappler, on the feet. In other words, I thought that the grappling difference was much, much larger than the striking difference. And we saw that play out in the fight. Yes, Kopylov hit him hard. Yes, Kopylov seemed to rock him a couple of times. But Fluffy had a lot of success on the feet. A lot of success. He was landing big shots. He was pressuring him. He even wobbled him a couple of times. But we didn't see Kopylov have any success on the ground, right? As soon as the fight got to the ground, he was dominated. He got submitted very, very soon after the fight got down to the ground. Yes, he did well in stuffing a couple of takedowns, but in the wrestling, in the grappling, in the jiu-jitsu, he was completely washed. And that was the main precedence of my bet, guys. When you get a binary fight like that, 9 times out of 10, you should take the fighter who has a bigger edge in their specific discipline over the other fighter. And to be honest, guys, in MMA, 9 times out of 10, that will be the grappler. Not all of the time, but a lot of the times it will be the grappler. So I bet on Fluffy there. And, you know, the reason I didn't bet on Fluffy's money line because he was minus 250. Why would I lay minus 250 when I could bet him in round 2 or round 3? There was no way Kopylov was surviving. If Fluffy Hernandez wins that fight, there's almost no way that Kopylov is surviving to the belt. Based on my research, based on what we see, based on what we know, based on the statistics, based on everything, Kopylov ain't lasting to the final bell if Fluffy wins. So instead of laying a big chalk price on Fluffy Hernandez, I just decided to bet his round props via round 2, via round 3, and we cashed and we won a lot of money on there. So shout out to Fluffy, man. He's made me a lot of money in the past, and he's done it again yesterday. The next fight I want to talk about, this is my favorite fight of the night. Of course, it was the main event. We capped it off, and I had a lot of money riding on Ilia Topuria. I won over $40,000 on Ilia Topuria just by him winning alone. I had Ilia Topuria to win, money line. I had Ilia Topuria to cap off a bunch of parlays. I had Ilia Topuria to win in round 2. I had Ilia Topuria to win via KO in a parlay, to win via KO in round 2. I mean, I had a lot of money riding on Ilia Topuria. And the reason I bet on Ilia Topuria, and by the way, if you follow my social media, I gave out Ilia Topuria to win as a free bet on my social media accounts. And I got a lot of hate for that. Lots of people told me I was crazy. How can we be betting against Volk? Told me I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm a casual, etc, etc, etc. All of those people lost money. I won money, all of my members won money, and anybody who listened to that free bet and actually placed it, they won money as well. So shout out to you if you was one of those people. But I was very happy to cash that bet because my prediction came true. I said that he's going to be able to disrespect Volk's power because Volkanovski doesn't have a lot of power. So he would be able to walk into range, land heavy hooks, and knock him out with a hook. And that's exactly what happened. But I'm not a genius, right? This isn't like super hard to break down. You know, a lot of people have messaged me after like, wow, that's so crazy that you predicted the exact thing that was going to happen. In my opinion, it's not that crazy. It was all there on film. It was all there on tape study. And something that you can take home with you guys is that if you ain't doing your tape study, then you ain't going to be able to make specific predictions like I was. You ain't going to be able to bet Ilia Topuria to win in round 2. Now, of course, there's other ways around it, but it was all there on film, guys. Volkanovski has had trouble at times getting into a firefight. We see Chad Mendes drop him in close quarters. We've seen Max Holloway drop him a couple of times. One of them was in very close quarters on the exit of the clinch. We have also seen Islam Makhachev wobbling badly in close quarters. We've seen Islam Makhachev obviously knock him out. So there was many things that I saw on tape that told me that Ilia Topuria would be able to walk into range, back him up against the cage, land heavy hooks, and knock him out, right? Ilia has done that to many fighters, and I didn't see why he wouldn't be able to do it to one of the greatest fighters of all time in this spot. So I bet on Ilia Topuria as the underdog. He cashed. At the end of the day, man, Volkanovski is 35 years of age, and the record for 35 years of age fighters or older in title fights is something insane. Like they only win 4% of fights. I can't remember the exact thing, but it's above 90% of fights. Fighters below 35 or fighters above 35, they lose more than 90% of title fights. So that was another reason why I backed Ilia Topuria. You know, I was very heavy on him this weekend. And hopefully if you listen to my content, you cashed as well. So overall, we had many more bets than that, right? We also cashed on Miranda Maverick. We cashed on Ian Gary. What else did we cash on? We cashed on Danny Barlow. Like, there was a lot of fights on that card that we cashed on, and I haven't mentioned them all in this video, but overall I won just over 6 figures, over $100,000 to make it my second 6-figure day of the year. At the start of the year, I done a live stream on this very YouTube channel. You can go and watch it right now. And the live stream is called How I'm Going to Make $1 Million from Sports Betting This Year. And a lot of people thought I was crazy for that. A lot of people was hating on that. A lot of people laughed at that. But who's laughing now? I've already earned 25% of that goal, $250,000 from sports betting. And guess what, boys? We're not even done with February yet. So you already know I'm about to hit that $1 million goal this year. And everybody on my service, maybe they won't hit $1 million because they ain't got as much money to put down as me, but they're going to be very wealthy at the end of the year. I can tell you that. I am putting in the insane amount of work this year. I've never put in this amount of work for anything in my entire life. So I know that that's going to pay off. Guys, at the end of the day, man, if you want to be a professional gambler, if you want to be a full-time gambler, you need to put in the work. Consistency beats everything. There's like, people think that they can come into gambling and instantly become a millionaire, or people think that they can come into gambling, disrespect the art of professional gambling, just put a couple of parlays in and win a lot of money. The reason for that is because you can put a parlay on and win a lot of money, right? Like, you could make your first bet ever, long shot parlay, it wins and you win 100 grand. I'm sure that happens every single week somewhere across the globe, but that gives a full sense of security for people, because then they start to think that gambling is easy because you can get quick wins. I always refer to becoming a professional boxer or a professional MMA fighter. You can't walk into an MMA gym and on your first day knock everybody out, but you can walk into a bookmaker and on your first day become a millionaire. It can happen. So for that reason, people get a full sense of security and don't think gambling is a real job, or don't think that it takes hard work to be a professional gambler. It is so hard, man. People don't understand how hard this game is. But basically, to simplify it, it all comes down to consistency, right? You need to be learning from people who know what they're talking about. You need to be consistently showing up every single day during your film study, during your tape study. You need to be reading articles, books, watching videos, watching podcasts on professional gambling to understand the art of it. So there's a little bit of a rant at the end of the video there, boys, but I just wanted to hammer home the point that this game is not easy. No matter how many people think it's easy because you won 1 or 2 bets, it's easy to win 1 or 2 bets. It's not easy to win 1 or 2,000 bets, 1,000 or 2,000 bets. So just make sure that, you know, if you're not signed up to my service and following me, then, you know, that's fine if you sign up to my service and following me, because I do all the work for you. And if you do want to sign up to my service, go to lucrativemabetting.com or click the link in my bio to sign up. But if you're trying to do this yourself, which is completely fine as well, just understand that it's going to take a long, long time and you have to dedicate yourself to it. Don't do it half-heartedly. But that's a bit of a rant at the end of the video, because I'm always trying to help everybody watching. But that's how I won my second 6-figure day from MMA betting this year. Let's do it again for the next pay-per-view in March, UFC 299. I'm buzzing for it. I've already got a few potential bets locked in over the next week because I like the lines. And that's it, boys. See you in the next video. Bang.